Hi, hello, welcome to the Conversation Society. I am your host here. The Conversation Society is a place where we are going to talk about psychoeducation in hopefully a broken down, more simplified, easier to digest manner. So if you're interested in joining me in that conversation, please do so in the comment section down below. And in today's video, I want to dive a little deeper into emotional regulation, and I want to talk about why and what we can do a little bit more, right? So I talked a little bit about how we're going to do this in steps. And our next natural step is to talk about the regulation portion. So let's dive in. Now, first and foremost, what I want you to know and learn is that emotional regulation is a skill. It is something that we can learn and grow and expand upon. Some of us are starting with zero skill level, and it's important to remember that a lot of us are starting from the ground up here. And that's going to make more sense as we go, potentially, right? But you're going to hear me say give yourself some grace quite a bit in this video today, but know that it's a skill. So how do we start working on that skill? Well, first, by understanding, right, that emotions a lot of the times come from automatic thoughts or cognitive distortions. So subconscious thought processes, if you will, or beliefs that we hold inside of ourselves, that we tell ourselves, negative thought processes that we tell ourselves on a daily basis or a regular basis that keep us down, right? Maybe something we see a lot with anxiety is catastrophizing, right? So if I think and know and plan and expect for the worst possible case scenario to happen, then at least I'm prepared, right? I'm expecting this thing to happen. I know that's what always happens because always the worst thing happens in my life, right? Anything better than that, right, is almost a relief. So we think that we're keeping ourselves safe by having these defense mechanisms, but in reality, right, we're just fighting ourselves. So what do I mean by that? Now, mental illness has symptoms and side effects, much like any other illness, right? Many things, heart disease, they come with other symptoms and side effects, and mental health disorders are no different, right? So some of those symptoms and side effects include things like cognitive distortions, automatic thought processes. Okay, why is that important? Well, because if you're anything like me, understanding that your mental illness is not your fault takes a really long time to accept. We repeat what we see, what we saw, what we know, what we knew, right? We pick up on the way the people that were responsible for raising us handled all kinds of different situations. We saw the behavioral responses of other people, and that's how we learned, right? We learn in those very formative years what's expected of us, what are the expectations, what am I working towards here, right? What is good behavior? And we model what we see, right? We copy, we mimic what we see, what we know. And for a lot of us, as I've said before, there's no guidebook. There is not even a guide, right, of any kind. So we have to understand that we're not choosing necessarily to have these thought processes, but we firmly believe them. We firmly believe that we are not good enough, that we are not valuable enough, that my life doesn't matter, or I'm never going to get out of this, and I can never forgive myself for the things that I've done, right? And all I'm asking is that you look at yourself from a humanistic approach. You look at yourself in a way that you would look at somebody else struggling, and understand that there are so many different factors that come into play, and we have to acknowledge them. We have to accept them, and we have to continue breaking down that stigma so that we can face them and get better and work on it, right? Because all we can do is work on it once we do know, once we are aware of the ways that the things we have experienced have manifested in our responses, our automatic stimuli, right? Those automatic reactions, those subconscious reactions that we're not asking for, we're not trying for, but that's what happens. Recognizing these thought processes really is the first step towards changing and challenging those thought processes. And that's incredibly important, right? Because if we continue to let those negative thought processes, those cognitive distortions just run rampant in our head, right, it's exhausting. We start to lose sleep. We probably eat more poorly, whether it's too much, not enough, not the right things. We are no longer moving our bodies around, right? We get stuck in these bouts of depression. We really, really, really say things to ourselves that we would probably never say to a human being standing in front of us, right? But somehow we allow ourselves to say it in the mirror. And it's important to know, right, that all of these things are intertwined. So the mental illness is now brought down our physical health. Our physical health is suffering, which is causing our mental health to suffer more, right? And at some point, it's this loop that we have to stick one arm out of, right? And say, oh, hold on, just a minute. Give me a second here. I need to hop off this merry-go-round so that I can check out the other playground equipment, right? So hop off the playground, or the merry-go-round, excuse me, and see, right, that there were a lot of moving parts that went into the emotional response that you're experiencing, right? Now, we talked before about how these emotional responses, these triggers, these reactions to stimuli, right? We talked about how these things can cause physical changes in our bodies, emotional changes, thought processes change. And a lot of the times, right, this results in a flight or freeze response when we're stuck on that merry-go-round. So sometimes our first reaction is to fight, that defense mechanism, right? Got to keep myself safe, get them before they get me. I'm taking whatever this person is saying to me as some sort of personal criticism because I've been constantly criticized, right? And I'm going to fight back. Or there's flight, right? Where we say, I'm out. I got to go. This is not it for me. I got to get out of here, right? I got to run for my life. And they run for their life. And oftentimes in a destructive manner, right? Where we don't think through the whole process. We need to get out of the danger. And then the freeze responses, right? I've alluded to a little bit before. We just don't know what to do. It's all very overwhelming. It's all just too much to handle, and so we don't do anything. And that's because we cannot get ourselves to physically make a step, right? This is all very normal. When our brain is overwhelmed with just trying to survive and being confused about what is a what is actually dangerous, right? And what does safety look like? Where do I connect those things? A lot of the time that means having to face your emotions, right? Because as I've alluded to before, when we stuff them down, they do not digest. They don't go anywhere. They just wreak havoc on our bodies, right? They will see those scenarios happen, okay, when we feel so out of control. And we've talked a little bit about how our brain craves safety. And if safety has not been a given, an expectation that you've had the luxury of having in your life, this is often going to come up for you, right? There's going to be triggers that happen because there is not a whole lot of safety or safe options for you, and maybe there never has been, right? That's where we are going to start to try to create our own safe space by shedding some of the things that have held us there in that place where we feel so out of control. And the only way that we can really do that, right, is to focus on the things we can control. What can I control in this situation? And that's what I'm going to put my energy into, because putting it into the things I cannot control is just draining me, right? And do I want to live like that forever? Some of us say we want to punish ourselves because we think we're bad people, but these are the symptoms and side effects. Unfortunately, sometimes we wish it was just physical pain, right? It's harder to comprehend when it's emotional pain. It's so important to work to regulate our emotions so that they don't control us our entire lives, right? Just because we understand that they happen for a reason, that they are incredibly valid flow. They will come to the surface and explode, right? And that's where that they developed because they needed to, or the way that they needed to at the time, right? These things are things that we learned, that we were taught, that we picked up on, that we didn't mean to, right? And for a long time, that's what we knew. But we can also reflect and say, but is this what I want to continue, right? And am I willing to put the energy into holding on to this that I normally give? Or can I take that energy maybe and start taking some steps forward to improve my quality of life, my self-esteem, my self-worth? Because nobody should have to live feeling so incredibly unworthy for so long, especially over something like a mental illness that they didn't ask for, that they did not sign up for, right? None of us ask for this. Emotional regulation is coming to terms, coming face to face with the things that we've been through, the things that have happened to us, and looking them in the eye and saying, I'm going to take whatever positive lesson I can take from this, whatever growth I can take from this, but I have to leave the rest behind, right? I'm going to learn a lesson. I'm going to grow. I'm going to do whatever I can do, right, to be better for myself. And then I'm going to leave some of this weight behind because I can't carry around 40 billion pounds, right? I won't make it out alive. Okay. I have to let that go. And I have to learn and be better next time. Whatever that looks like for me, not society, not my family, not a partner, right? In my soul. So please keep in mind, right? If you are starting to physically feel, right, those signs, those symptoms, those are typically our first indicators that we're having heightened emotional reaction. Okay. For me, I carry a lot of it in my shoulders. So I notice now that that's one of my kind of points, right? Is when I'm feeling particularly overwhelmed or emotionally dysregulated, I hold it very much in my shoulders and I get very tense. I experience pain in my arms and some numbness, which leads to headaches in the back of my neck. And at some point, I begin to realize that, right, I grew up and grew to womanhood with a lot of abuse. I was not safe almost ever. And tensing up, right? I sleep in a ball sometimes, right? I kind of this is my body's subconscious reaction to keeping myself safe, right? Self-soothing, trying to make myself comfortable. And that is the cue for me to say, I need to take some breaths, right? I need to take a second here. I need to calm down my neurological system, right? Because that's the first step is getting your body to calm back down, okay? Because our body is now responding, and when our body's out of control and our mind is out of control, it's hard to get grip of both or of either thing, right? So the first thing that we can do is something very scientifically proven to calm that body down, and that is by taking those huge, deep belly breaths, as many as you can for a moment, right? And get that body to just chill. Get some oxygen to the places it needs to go, the blood flowing the way that it needs to flow, right? And then I want you to take a step back and say, what is this emotion? Name what you're feeling. What's going on here? Why is this happening? Think about it. Work yourself through it, right? There's a reason that this is happening, right? It's not unknown then. It's not necessarily out of our control then, right? We're controlling figuring out why it's happening so that we can prevent it from happening to ourselves in the future, right? And that's kind of back our power. That's taking back energy. And cognitive reframing is really kind of key here, right? So we've now acknowledged it. We've calmed our bodies down. We've acknowledged the emotion. We know what it is, maybe where it's coming from. We've reflected on that a little bit. And now we need to restructure our thought process towards that thing. So an example may be you were already running late for work and everything's going wrong that morning and you hit traffic, you're stuck in traffic, and it's going to make you even more late, and you can feel yourself getting more frustrated and tense and angry, and you're starting to grip your steering wheel, and you're feeling very out of control and frustrated, right? If we look at this scenario, okay, a restructuring point of view or reframing, if you will, something that we may say is, great, I'm stuck in traffic. My life sucks. Of course, I should have left sooner. I should have done that. Person's probably going to be mad at me. I'm probably going to get in trouble, right? And we just kind of our brain with all of these what ifs, should haves, and all of these things that no longer matter. Because all that matters right now is that you are sitting here in your car, in this traffic, and it is what it is, right? Getting emotionally charged about that situation, we're not helping ourselves. Okay, we're not progressing any sort of like movement forward. We're not comforting ourselves, right? We're just making ourselves feel worse. What do we say instead? Well, that sucks. I'm already running late. Now there's a bunch of traffic. To keep in mind, maybe around this time, there's more traffic. I'll have to just explain it to my boss. And if there's a problem, make sure I do better next time. I leave earlier next time. I can't change it. It's already happened. So what am I going to think now? I'm going to think, well, maybe I learned a lesson here. Maybe I was running late because I snoozed one too many times, and or whatever the case may be, right? It doesn't matter at that point. All that matters at that point is where you're at and what you're going to do about it, how you're going to react to it, because that controls a lot of our mood for the rest of our day. Now, if you have the option to talk to somebody about it, group, a therapist, a counselor, any of these things, Obviously, that is the most ideal option. Now, I will not sit here and be a fool and say that that is an easy thing to acquire, especially in today's world. And I understand that and I respect that. And unfortunately, in a world where everything else is being thrown at us from every direction and it's all the most important thing on the planet and everything needs our attention right now, right? The help is something that maybe takes a little bit longer to get, and that is unfortunate, and I hope that we see change in the field. And I don't think it's for people's lack of trying or wanting to help. It's just literally the lack of amount of help that's available. And let's be real, insurance and red tape and all that jazz. All that to be said, if you were able to be in that position and to speak with professionals or even a group, amazing. Please do that. If you are not, I understand that. I've been there. I empathize with that. If there's somebody else in your life that you can talk to, that you feel safe talking to, then I encourage you to do that. Make sure that there are standards and expectations and understandings within that relationship and that situation, though, right? Um, do we have a code word where I just need you to listen, or are you available to just listen, or maybe I need advice, right? We have to kind of these things in those relationships so that we're not feeling left feeling like burdens, okay? Just have very open and upfront and honest conversation about what those expectations are or what those asks are with those people to make sure that we're on the same page. Because it's not always about them just not caring, right? Everybody has their own set of stuff, their own things going on. A lot of things that people you may think you well, and they may have things going on in your life that you have no idea about, in their life that you have no idea about, excuse me. If you can't, I will mention journaling, and I'm not talking about journaling as in getting a diary and a lock and a pen and writing dear diary and the date. And what I am saying though is, and if that works for you, fantastic. I think that's great. More power to you, absolutely. But if you're not somebody that can sit and write out your thoughts as if somebody's going to be reading them, I totally empathize and respect that, right? What I will say though is that you can still write things down. It doesn't have to make sense. Nobody's going to read it. You can delete it afterwards, put it behind a passcode on your phone, burn the papers afterwards. Just get your thoughts out, right? As if you are writing or typing your thoughts as they're happening, it's helping your brain process them, right? So if you don't have somebody to talk to, try to talk to yourself out loud, right? Or talk through your thoughts in your head on paper or on your phone or on the computer, right? So that you're able to help your brain process those things. Another important thing, as I've stated many times now, is to give yourself some grace through this process. Set realistic expectations. Understand that when you start the work, it's not going to be over in a week or two or a month, right? Oftentimes, learning is lifelong, right? And as human beings, we shouldn't ever feel like we have arrived and figured it all out and we are now perfect people, because that's not going to happen, right? And who's to say what perfect is, anyways? But we can keep working towards learning and understanding and developing a kind of meaning, right? So give yourself days off, give yourself time, give yourself grace. If you have an emotionally charged reaction to something, even after you've been working to regulate your emotions better, that's okay, right? Those feelings, those emotions are valid. They came from somewhere for a reason and they served a purpose. Let's appreciate them for what that purpose was and continue to leave them a little bit. There are some things, trauma, some stuff that we carry that is not something we can just decide one day we're going to respond differently and act differently. There are some things that take much longer to work through, and that's okay because they probably took a long time to get there. And that's not to discourage you; it's to encourage you to keep going. If you need a day off from everything, take a day off. That's okay, but get back up tomorrow. All right. Take a 5-minute walk. Take a shower. Lift something heavier. Right, like your body a little bit. Do your best to get at least 6 hours of sleep, right? Just drink water, drink more, like do things to help your body, help your mind. Okay. I'm not saying you have to drink 4 gallons of water and only eat kale and go run marathons and sleep 12 hours a day, because another cognitive distortion is kind of all or nothing thinking, right? Like in order to be healthy, I need to be that way. And that's not really the case, right? It's not that either I need to eat all Hostess cakes all day long or I need to, eat the diet that I explained. It's not the case, right? But those little choices that we can make those little decisions, those little steps to kind of flip our momentum and our self-esteem and our self-worth, right? Building those new habits. It takes time, but you're worth the investment. You're worth the time. Your energy is valuable, right? So let's stop giving our energy to those things that we can no longer control, the things that we can no longer change. And let's start facing those emotions and looking them in the eye and looking directly at why it's there and where it's coming from and is it still serving me? Right? Because it's time to take back your power, take back your energy. All right. Thank you for joining me for this video. I know that's kind of a lot, but I hope it makes sense to some of you, and I hope by just better understanding, right, that there are reasons, that there are valid explanations at play here. I hope brings you some comfort and some solace in the fact that you aren't choosing this battle and you don't have to fight it alone. There are people that understand, that get it, that have been there, and that want to help. So, in this crazy world, let's help each other out. Let's build each other up. And let's start seeing each other for very humanistic, different, experienced people that we are. So, going forward, try to remember for yourself and all of those around you that we all have very unique experiences. And so keep in mind that we are all humans, but our human experience is not all the same. Many of us struggle with many different things, and it comes from everywhere: where we were born, who we were born to, how we lived, how we grew up, etc., etc., etc. Give yourself some grace. You can do this. I want you to challenge some of those more difficult emotions this week and start to face them and figure out where they came from and decide, are you going to continue letting them have your power and your energy, or maybe can you take some of that back to move you forward in a more positive, healthy manner, right? Thank you so much for joining me in this conversation. If you have any thoughts, comments, questions, concerns, please leave them in the comment section down below. And I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye-bye. So keep in mind that we are all humans, but our human experience is not all the same. Many of us struggle with many different things, and it comes from everywhere: where we were born, who we were born to, how we lived, how we grew up, etc., etc., etc. Give yourself some grace. You can do this. I want you to challenge some of those more difficult emotions this week and start to face them and figure out where they came from and decide, are you going to continue letting them have your power and your energy, or maybe can you take some of that back to move you forward in a more positive, healthy manner, right? Thank you so much for joining me in this conversation. If you have any thoughts, comments, questions, concerns, please leave them in the comment section down below. And I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye-bye.